the first two elements of emotional intelligence have to do with self-mastery. And they are based, this circuitry is the neural platform. The first of these is self-awareness, knowing what I'm feeling, knowing why I'm feeling it. Self-awareness is very important for decision-making, particularly personal decision-making, but also business or even technical decision-making for quite an interesting reason. There was a study done by a man named Antonio Damasio. He's now at USC. He's an expert on this circuitry. And because he's an expert on this circuitry, a very bright corporate lawyer who unfortunately had a prefrontal brain tumor, which was operated on quite successfully and early. But during the surgery, they snipped the connection between the amygdala and the PFC. This lawyer went to see Damasio because his life was collapsing. And Damasio tested him and couldn't see anything wrong. The lawyer's life had collapsed in this way. He seemed to be able to function just as well after surgery as before, but he couldn't keep his job. He lost his job, couldn't keep any job. His wife left him. He lost his house. He ended up living in his brother's spare bedroom. And in despair, he goes to Damasio. He says, well, you're an expert on this circuitry. Can you figure out what's wrong with me? Damasio gives him a battery of neuropsychological tests. Nothing wrong. Attention, memory, just as good as before surgery. IQ was very high still after surgery as it was before. But he couldn't keep a job. And then Damasio got a clue. He asked him this question: when should we have our next appointment? He realized that the lawyer could give him the rational pros and cons of every hour for the next 2 weeks, but he didn't know which was best. In other words, Damasio argues, when we have a thought, our emotional centers valence it for us. When we're making a decision, our emotional centers prioritize for us. He no longer had that ability. Damasio argues that in order to make a good decision, which strategy should we follow? Should our team go for plan A or plan B? How does this guy compare to the X other guys I've dated? Should I marry this guy or not? Should I leave this job for another? All of those decisions depend on our ability to draw on the wisdom of the emotions. And wisdom of emotions is not just a pretty phrase. It actually